By this point, video games are so mainstream that you are no longer considered nerdy or weird for liking and playing them. Gaming is everywhere, from games on our phones, our computers, our consoles, TVs, and many other platforms. All this fun and excitement of video games only comes out and stays on the surface, ready to welcome everybody with open arms to this amazing hobby. However, believe it or not, there is some genuine darkness deep down in the world of gaming. Something that is certainly not talked about enough, but something that has to be explored. And that's exactly what we're going to do today. Now, don't worry though, for each level of danger I talk about here, I'll provide ways for how to deal with them. So make sure you stay until the very end. Tier 1, compulsive spending. Remember the good old days where video games were just fun and innocent entertainment products? You know, when you would buy a console, buy one video game, and you'd get the whole experience? Sure, you were encouraged to buy more games, like when StarCraft 1 came out and then Brood War came out. But whenever you just bought one game, it was a complete package. There was no DLC edition, no Call of Duty World at War Collector's Edition. Yeah, the one where they gave you a small canteen for water, but guess what? You can't open the canteen, so that kind of ruins everything. Anyways, my point is that the games came complete and were less about using dark psychology tactics to manipulate the player into spending money. Nowadays, it's actually a completely different story. Any modern video game you play is bound to have microtransactions in the form of more downloadable content, loot boxes, skins, in-game currency, battle passes, and more. All of this encourages you to compulsively spend money. Every type of microtransaction has its own unique manipulation method to make you open your wallet, and I can't cover everything here, but you can check out my playlist of videos on exposing the video game industry if you want to learn more. One thing you need to understand is that compulsively spending money on video games and in-game purchases leads you to being more hooked through increased attachment and investment, which leads to even more wasted time and money playing video games. Tier 2. Time consumption. Now this one is pretty self-explanatory. The more you play, the more time you waste. Now there's a big difference between spending time and wasting time. Currently, I'm spending time making this video. However, if you enjoy an hour or two of video games in a healthy way after you've done your responsibilities and you can go on without video games, you most likely are just spending your time too. You use video games as a way to relax after a hard day, and you don't neglect your life for gaming. You choose to spend your time wisely. Time wasted usually comes in the form of not wanting to spend time, but either being dependent on it or addicted to something that's making you spend that time. Remember, time is your life, and in most severe cases, that's what gaming can waste for you, your life. Although a couple hours of video games a day doesn't seem like a lot, a couple hours every day is actually a significant percentage of your overall time. Actually, recently I asked gamers to share how many hours they played video games, and the answers might shock you. You can check out my video on that for more. Tier 3, gateway to gambling. Now we're beginning to dive a bit deeper. There's a very fine line between gaming and gambling, and certainly more modern games are blurring these lines more than ever before. Remember compulsive spending? Well, that could be one of the main reasons you develop gambling tendencies. Opening loot boxes is one of the primary gateway elements in the form of a microtransaction. Just look at CSGO case opening compared to a real slot machine. There's not a lot of differences there. The animations, the sound effects, it's all virtually identical. Loot boxes might be the most slot machine-like experience, but the gateway to gambling from video games also comes in the form of influencers, esports betting, and skin gambling. Influencers do just that. They influence. For me, I'm trying to influence you to spend your life wisely and to make the most of it. When you see your favorite YouTuber or Twitch streamer engaging in gambling activities, you might get the urge to do that yourself. In fact, it normalizes it. If you know a famous YouTube movie critic by the handle 24 Frames of Nick, well, he got influenced by his favorite Twitch streamers to start online gambling, a mistake that ended up costing him over $250,000 in just 1 year. Esports betting and skin gambling is full-on gambling, just with an added gaming themed element, and really there's nothing more to add to that. So we entered the gateway from gaming to gambling, but this is not the end. We must dive further into the abyss. Tier 4, violence and gaming. Do you know the name of the video game that inspired the ESRB rating system? It was the original 1992 Mortal Kombat. At the time, this was considered one of the most realistic and brutal video games that made both government and parents very concerned. Nowadays, when we look at that old Mortal Kombat gameplay, we might think that there is nothing too bad about it. However, the question actually is whether the game is not actually that violent, or perhaps we just got used to that violence. There's desensitization. Playing all those violent video games can make a person less empathetic to real-life violence and victims who have experienced that violence. This can also lead to more outbursts of aggression and view aggression itself as an appropriate response to dealing with conflict. I see this every day with families who reach out to us for coaching support, where they say their kids put their head through a wall, they've attacked them, or they've self-harmed in some way. And this was all related to being addicted to video games. So the behavior doesn't mean always acting, aggressive or violently like a game in real life, but certainly in mood swings and physical conflict and more aggressive behavior in real life. So as you can see, video games are not all fun and, pun intended, games. There really is an ugly side to them. But unfortunately, this isn't it. And the most disgusting and dangerous part of video games is right around the corner. The final tier: online sexual predators. It's mid-August 2022 on Twitch. Two young girls began streaming themselves in a bedroom. Cool. Can you place the cam on a table? Because we can just see legs. The girls placed the camera so that their full bodies were now visible. You can do a split or a handstand. Viewer 1 instructed the girls to do some TikTok dances. At that time, 16 people were already watching the stream. Wow. Good. Viewer 1 disconnects. Shortly, Viewer 1 enters another young girl's stream and begins requesting the same: more TikTok dances. According to Twitch profile data and research by Bloomberg, at least 1,976 users around this time in 2022 followed young people live streaming themselves. These users encouraged young people to perform suggestive dances and imitations of sexual acts. These alleged predators targeted over 279,000 children, according to the researcher. Twitch, as we all know, is a streaming website arguably more video game themed. Unfortunately, Twitch is not the only platform where predatory behavior happened and continues to happen every day. Countless video game channels disguised as family-friendly content for kids are actually predators in disguise. Many of them were already exposed, but imagine how many of these people are still out there. Video games are such an easy way for predators to lure young and impressionable kids towards doing what these sick people want. It also happens on Discord regularly. As an example, when kids are playing online, they can meet all sorts of people, never knowing their real names or how they look. Amongst innocent players, there are people who are not there to play the game. This disgusting behavior is the bottom of our video game danger iceberg. I mean, how can you go lower than that? Now, we need a way back up. So let's talk about how to deal with all these dangers one by one. Let's start with compulsive spending. An obvious solution would be to stop playing video games, but not many people are going to accomplish this goal just like that. You can start off by purchasing video games that come in full, so to speak, so games that don't come with microtransactions, no in-game purchases. Nowadays, that can be a bit easier said than done because most video games have some sort of monetization system in place. Personally, I played chess. Chess has no microtransactions, and I really like that. If you are going to continue to play video games, maybe you want to go to older generations of games and more retro games or indie games that are just built for the fun of gaming. This way you can ensure that you're not spending money compulsively on video games that just waste all your money, but they can also consume a lot of your time. So remember what I said about time, it's your life. Never forget that. The next time you sit down to play some Fortnite, think about it like this. If I play this game, what am I gaining and what am I losing? In terms of gaining something, video games do not provide much, as the only thing you get is entertainment. But as soon as you turn the game off, you have nothing. In fact, if you're not gaming in a healthy way, you lose that precious time and you'll never get it back. Compulsive spending and time consumption lead to the gateway to gambling. Compulsive time and money spending is one thing. Beginning to develop gambling tendencies is another. I'll never forget a comment I got on this YouTube channel from a 13-year-old. They had shared that they had just bet on their first CSGO match and they didn't want to do more of it, but their friends were pressuring them to do it. This stuff happens all the time and gaming is the vehicle for it. So be aware of this and don't play games with random elements in them that urge you to spend money. Things like loot boxes, and be aware of any friends who are peer pressuring you into betting on games. Certain games like CSGO, FIFA, Call of Duty, these are very common games that have these sorts of mechanics. All right, now what about violence in gaming? What games nowadays don't have violence in them? Well, not many. Before you make any changes in video games, you need to look at yourself honestly. Is gaming helping you be the type of person that you wanna B, is it increasing conflict and stress with people around you or with yourself? Instead of playing video games that are hyper stimulating, full of focus, and lead you to feeling more aggressive, maybe it's time to make a change. Now, when it comes to online sexual predators, the best advice is for parents and people with younger siblings. The most important thing is to monitor your child's online and video game habits, especially if you know that your kid is making content or putting themselves out there on the internet, streaming on Twitch, or creating content on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, or any other platforms. It's important to not only monitor your child's behavior, but also limit it in important ways. So limiting should be set for social media platforms as well as video games, as sometimes both of these things can overlap with each other. Usually kids nowadays love playing on smartphones and tablets. However, kids are not the only ones who can fall victim to the power of a manipulative mobile gaming environment. So check out this video about this one mobile game that has taken the world by storm in recent years.